The Meridian Gate, for centuries the most important entrance to the Forbidden City. In that time, it has witnessed the entire history of this ancient palace, taking careful note of those who pass through, from emperors to common people. Today, the Meridian Gate is like a portal in time, inducting visitors from all over the world, keen to view the 453 exhibits in this exhibition hall, transporting them back to 1420, the year in which the Forbidden City was built. Since it was built 600 years ago, the Forbidden City has not only witnessed history, but become part of it. The Everlasting Splendor exhibition tells the story of the Forbidden City, its 600-year timeline, showing us the virtuosity and ingenuity of the generations of craftsmen and the wisdom and dedication of countless palace builders and restorers whose efforts made this palace what it is today. The East Prosperity Gate, once the first port of call for ministers to the Qing Dynasty court, is now the exit used by tourists. Sometimes it seems as if past and present always go in opposite directions.
我们现在就是现在先把这块先卸下来，然后再
这个拿去顶一下那个头子上面，看能不能把它顶断。顶啊顶啊，把它顶，先把这个顶起来，对，把它顶起来。
The other day, a wooden beam on the East Prosperity Gate was found to be showing signs of coming loose. An immediate overhaul was in order.
上面要掉，上面要掉，好几个路方子啊！上面要掉，他们那连着的，原来就是拱门。
Dealing with dilapidation and decay are daily challenges for the Department of Architectural Heritage.
这个现在这个就是朝上的，然后这面是跟那个刚才那面接触的那个，它那位置正好是在这个墙身下。明白了。对，上面还重用了这么多这个卸载什么的。
With the decayed beams sent back to the Department of Architectural Heritage, the task of surveying and risk management has come to an end for the time being.
我刚才一直想的是东西，其实人家是南北。
The next step is to make preparations and wait for the right season to begin construction work. There is still a long way to go before restoration work is completed. The Palace Museum's Department of Architectural Heritage is located inside the East Prosperity Gate. It was established in December 1958 and is responsible for the study and conservation of ancient buildings. In the Everlasting Splendor exhibition, the palace itself is also an exhibit. So curatorial work has become an important aspect of the work done by the department.
先说国内单位，南京博物院13件，中间那确认好了是吧？对。没有那个，今天是礼拜三，礼拜五的时候，我觉得院里的这些就是宫廷器物、书画、图书馆，就一定要给咱们一个最后的一个确认表了。都涉及一个提前要做好这个展具和展柜设计问题。像这个凤阳这个，咱们有一些没见过，展览部的老师需要提前去看一下。单位就不说了，然后现在说。
At this meeting, it was decided that department should look beyond the walls of Palace Museum in its search for the earliest traces of the Forbidden City. What did the Forbidden City look like 600 years ago? Answering that question will involve a journey of thousands of kilometers to find the original template for the design of the palace complex.
有没有发现吗？
Wu Wei, born in 1988, entered the Palace Museum's Archaeology Institute in 2013. He's one of a new generation of archaeologists in the Palace Museum, and his main job since he came here has been to dig soil.
确定这是不是涵洞的位置，这个确定死了，那这边就要开工，重点就挖这一块了。哎，我的故宫不是有故宫里办公嘛？就是比如说我之前在那个西华门里面那个地方办公，就我会走到那边去说，哎，我说我现在在北京的话，我可能就已经到了我的办公地点了，也就是。其实现在这边正好是一个废墟，就是这样子。
After days of digging in Fengyang, today he's finally ready for his long-awaited meeting with his colleagues from the Palace Museum.
这个龙的故宫龙就是样子形状是一样，但是呢，已经没有这么精细了。因为它这个龙的这个腿的这边肌肉感雕得特别明显，故宫就不会，故宫就
这不就是锻炼和不锻炼的区别吗？对吧？雕的多，
对，
多飘逸啊！
对，这是好像雕，这不是我们。
咱们这应该叫什么兽？这个
它有脚，其实应该是都有，但它有翅膀，天马，对，像天马，它有翅膀。
These cultural relics, far older than the Forbidden City, make the experts from the Palace Museum who came to borrow the exhibits excited. Masonry often lasts longer than wood, so while the magnificent palace has been reduced to dust, these surviving fragmentary tiles and masonry, and the patterns engraved on them, still retain the lingering essence of a Ming Dynasty palace. Fengyang is the hometown of Zhu Yuanzhang, the founding emperor of the Ming Dynasty. In the second year of his reign, Zhu Yuanzhang decided to return to his hometown shortly after his ascension to the throne to build his capital there. The construction of the capital was a huge project. However, 6 years later, when the imperial city had begun to take shape, Zhu Yuanzhang suddenly canceled the whole project for reasons that still remain a mystery. So it was that what should have been a gorgeous palace became a secret buried in a stretch of wasteland.
这个里面是木桩，看到没？这些木桩是这边可能还有一个木桩，还没有被发掘出来。它是加固这个土的，夯土的啊，加固这个，你看这个上面是这个碎砖层啊，它可能这个夯完之后呢，下面加这个很多密集的木桩，能够就是保证这个地基不沉降，就是更加稳固。你看我那个两个是我自己挖的，就是这两个是工人挖的。就是我是一直掏不到底，就特别深，就是看到没？这两个地钉。
Ancient Chinese palaces were constructed on the basis of a set of strict and demanding standards, summarized by later craftsmen as the 8 main works. Top of the list was the earthwork used for constructing the foundations. We will never know about the earthwork process used in the construction of the Forbidden City. And it's also impossible to figure out through large-scale underground archaeology in the Forbidden City. However, the ruins of the proposed Ming capital, which was built in a similar era, can give us a complete picture of the highest level of earthwork process in the early Ming dynasty. This is the most central palace building in the proposed Ming capital, the predecessor of the Hall of Supreme Harmony in the Forbidden City. The foundation here is made of alternating layers of rubble and rammed earth, and there are already as many as 18 layers of each type in the excavated section. This earthwork process was used and further optimized in the Forbidden City. Such a heavy and solid underground structure not only enabled the palace it supported to stand steadfastly for 600 years, but also signified the durability of the dynasty itself. This is what everlasting splendor means. Zhu Yuanzhang's unfinished dream city was realized 50 years later by his son, Zhu Di, in Beijing. But it took 600 years for the two iterations of the palace to finally meet. The architectural components of the palace, which came all the way from Fangyang, only got to meet their descendants for the first time in 2020. The secret of the palace's longevity lies not only in its solid foundation. Traditional wooden buildings have no chance of withstanding hundreds of years of weathering without the protection of tiles. But though roofs laid with glazed tiles are not afraid of water and fire, they have weaknesses of their own. According to the records of the Imperial Household Department in the Qing Dynasty, every year in spring and autumn, the Forbidden City had to organize teams to go onto the roofs to drive away the natural enemies of tiled surfaces. So effective were the measures taken that people used to say that the roofs of the Forbidden City were so special they somehow repelled grass and birds. It's legends such as these that add to the mystery and charm of the Palace Museum more. But legend is all they are. The seeds of the grasses are inevitably blown onto the roofs by the wind or carried there in the droppings of birds. And once they take root in the tiles, the waterproofing system of the palace becomes compromised. Interestingly, different types of grasses favored the different environments provided by the roofs of different palaces. Using the same pattern adopted for the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the Qianlong Emperor had the Hall of Imperial Supremacy built as his retirement residence. He used to hold the world-famous banquets for 1,000 elderly here.
这个草，这个列为地方，这下面的根才是地方，这上面是一二是草。
We don't know if he knew that the roof of such an auspicious palace always harbored Di Huang. Every year the plants wilt and sprout year after year and never stop. As long as the Palace Museum exists, the work of removing the grass will be ongoing. Broken bricks, shattered tiles, rotten wood, and peeling wall coverings are found everywhere in the yard of the Department of Architectural Heritage. A warts-and-all presentation of the composition and texture of ancient Chinese buildings. The glazed tiles borrowed from Fangyang have been chosen to represent Ming tiles. At the same time, another curatorial team is working on a more special type of tile. Shen Fuzhi has served as a carpenter in the Palace Museum for over 20 years. With the opening of the exhibition approaching, the Department of Architectural Heritage has invited him to help complete a special architectural model. But the primary purpose of this model is not to illustrate the structure of the building, but rather to showcase a special type of roof tile.
是那样画的吗？不是那样画的吧？
应该是这样。
对的，应该是这样画。
拍下来的那个明瓦，边缘的那个锯痕特别明显。哦，这样我觉得这样就稍微得磨一下。
对。
手工就是这点好，机器它就是一个力道，太猛了，就太猛了，特别容易给它吃了。
This tile is only 0.1 centimeters thick, translucent like rock candy, has a pearl-like luster, and has a hard texture that is extremely easy to delaminate when cut. Throughout the Forbidden City, this special tile only appears on the rear eaves of the main hall of the Hall of Mental Cultivation. For a long time, everyone thought they were probably made of some kind of special mica. When the Hall of Mental Cultivation was under renovation, some of these tiles were reimposed for research purposes. The final conclusion was that they were made of a kind of shell called sea moon rather than mica. Jiang Qiong from the Department of Architectural Heritage has been looking for it for years. But she still hasn't found specimens of this shell that meet the criteria for restoring the Hall of Mental Cultivation.
如果想要完全的复原养心殿这个称照的话，我们要找的这个明瓦呢，比如说拿我买的这个标本来看的话，这一片它的这个尺寸大概是12、13公分的样子。那么我们要加工成这样一片方形的明瓦的话，它至少也是要比这个要大一圈的。那可能确实不等它长到这个岁数就已经被捞起来或者被捡起来了，就很困难。我想试一下，试试吧。是的。那你怎么保证你这样全部拉的是一条线呢？
你是先锯完一面掰下来是吗？
啊，对，这是不是也是最后是掰的？
啊，可以，挺好，大可以，
这个能打，
这就是
它有点这样，
这样的话是翘起来，这样不行，这样钉的不好钉，得这样。
对，必须得是那样，讲的时候就要
再多一点，
对。
翻过来用是不是？
那最后合龙是由这个申师傅跟张师傅联手完成的。
它放到什么地方？
咱以那个，哎，要不对那个门？
不用，我就在边上。也太抢眼了。
再紧一点啊！3、2、1，再来一张。
The rear eaves of the Hall of Mental Cultivation are the only places we have found in Beijing that use shells as tiles. How did this shell, once common on the southeast coast of China, get into the inner courtyard of the palace? Who was it built for? Was it related to the Qianlong Emperor's southern tours? Experts are still searching for an answer. By contrast, the story of the Palace of Eternal Spring is well known. In the new year of 1750, the whole Forbidden City was done up in honor of the new year. Meanwhile, a 40-year-old man was alone with his sadness. The Qianlong Emperor came to the silent Palace of Eternal Spring to mourn his wife, Empress Xiao Xin-chun. who had passed away 2 years earlier. After the death of the empress, the Qianlong emperor ordered everything she'd left behind in this palace to be preserved. From time to time, he came here to mourn his beloved wife and think of the time they'd spent together. It was only when he passed the throne to the Jiaqing emperor at the age of 85 that he agreed to remove his late wife's furnishings and allow others to live in the Palace of Eternal Spring. In addition to the love between the Qianlong emperor and his empress, the Palace of Eternal Spring also retains the color paintings on the roof and eaves, specially repainted when Empress Dowager Cixi lived here. Like the tiles, the color paintings also slow down the erosion of the wind and rain and play a role in protecting the wooden structure, not to mention make the buildings in the palace more beautiful. Of course, the beauty of the paintings is obvious to anyone who sees them. What's more difficult to appreciate is the skill and effort that went into making them.
这叫线法界画，这个界画实际上就是西洋画法，有透视。但是这个为什么就是现在晚期慈禧时候住的地方呢？这个慈禧在的时候，她特别喜欢画这种题材。这个里头
Yang Hong is an expert on color paintings in the Department of Architectural Heritage. Her junior schoolmate, Wang Guanbin, specializes in making rubbings of the color paintings. This color painting in the corridor of the Palace of Eternal Spring uses figure and landscape motifs in its feng, heart, the central part of the color painting on rectangular wooden beams in ancient Chinese buildings. Richly redolent of southern China, it's typical of the Suzhou style color painting.
你在踏的时候也是不是保证这个力度是稍微轻一点？
没错，所以说这个自己慢慢掌握的这个。要是时间一重，就把这个就挖里边的那东西就给弄黑了，就看不清了。工作是哪年？我是9。
This reproduced color painting will be an important exhibit of the Everlasting Splendor exhibition, showing how the Forbidden City changed in the late Qing dynasty.
故宫是2002年大修。
After rubbing comes copying and coloring.
这张画挺好的，
这张是挺好看的，这个好，又稳重，这个颜色，哎，我昨天这一小方巾弄了2个多小时。咱说也能照着画，但是你走样走得太厉害了。
对呀，
我这么着来，尽量就是做到不走样嘛。
对
吧？
对。
Gilding is the final step.
先把这照看在这儿。这个金呢，因为它那个金的碎面嘛，它碎了以后可以粘上，就是说你差一点没贴到的，它是可以粘上的。没贴到，你这一小碎金全都走上了。所以说过去贴金的时候，不要说贴特实。我这个贴金等于贴的就够实的，就多了，对人家说就浪费金了。
The color paintings that are most characteristic of the palace can be literally described as shiny and gilded. During the Qing dynasty, China's gold production increased greatly, and the gold leaf processing also became increasingly sophisticated. During the prosperous era of Kangxi and Qianlong, the amount of gold used in color paintings in the Forbidden City increased dramatically, and the Forbidden City became even more luminous and luxurious. It was literally the embodiment of prosperity and wealth.
站着这个在往
对，我感觉是站着这个，你看，
目前来说，这个小样就是算
对，目前来说
制作完成了。
对。 8月2号方心背面稿，我看几天啊？1天、2天、3天、4天、5天、6天、7天、8天、9天。
For many years, the Department of Architectural Heritage has been preserving samples of representative color paintings using the traditional process. Compared to photographic reproduction, drawing samples of the color paintings is much more time-consuming and labor-intensive. But it can preserve rich information about the process, making it indispensable to color painting preservation and research.
我这用你架的这个给你照一张。
行，等会儿。
你照着我。
这干啥去？宝贝儿，干什么去啊？
你们好。
哎，你好。
游泳去。
啊，游泳去啊？这是给人家画的啊。哎呀，人家。
就是我说下次没个板子，你拿回来你接那个正好。
Ultimately, these samples of color paintings will be sealed in the vaults of the Department of Architectural Heritage. These works, copied by Yang Hong and Wang Guanbin, will become an important resource for the next generation of restorers in the Palace Museum. In the office of key scientific research base of ancient ceramics, fine ancient ceramics are often to be found, like this old lion. The good condition of its teeth is all thanks to proper maintenance. By comparison, this blue tile looks inconspicuous, but it has a special role to play in the everlasting splendor exhibition.
像这个如果是酒精再擦不掉的话，就再用丙硼试一下。
那是擦有机物。
擦有机物。
如果有一些它本身就不是有机物，比如说是那种钙质的污染物，那它可能就是这些有机溶剂就擦不掉的。然后还得想其他的办法。
5 years ago, the Department of Conservation Science was based in these courtyards. Now the entire department has moved to Hospital for Cultural Relics, located inside the western wall of the Palace Museum. While maintaining and restoring cultural relics using traditional techniques, the hospital is also equipped with the most advanced medical equipment for cultural relics in the world, attracting more young people who are passionate about the preservation of cultural relics to join them.
人家可羡慕了，要不然你们忽悠了好多年轻人非要学这个的，就人家觉得，哎呀，这啥都不干，就撸猫，是吧？亚飞，你是不是那时候是这么想，你就报了？你光学一个清洁材料，可能就要学1年。
These tiles are from as far away as Germany. They served as building materials for the bower of the Spirit Pool. Located in the Palace of Prolonging Happiness, the Bower of the Spirit Pool is the last building in the Forbidden City, started while it was still the Imperial Palace. Atypically built in a Western architectural style, the building was yet to be completed in 1911, the year in which the Qing dynasty fell. If this building had been completed, today, visitors of the Palace of Prolonging Happiness would be able to see the earliest aquarium in China.
那个东西可能包下来的时候，有些是在墙上，有些是在这个瓷砖上。
对啊，这里记得是德国维堡这个品牌的样子，包括现在很多卫浴产品也在用，而且泰坦尼克号当时也是用的这个。
可是它。
Based on the trademark on the tiles, researchers from the Department of Architectural Heritage found that a German manufacturer of ceramics, established in the 1740s, produced the tiles. It's a company that is still in business today. More than 100 years ago, these tiles with exquisite patterns were transported across the sea to the distant Chinese imperial palace and used to create this Western Water Tower, a small witness to the material and cultural exchange between the East and the West. It is hard to imagine how it felt to build this foreign-inspired pleasure dome when the Qing dynasty was tottering on the verge of collapse. Sadly, there's nobody left who can tell us. The restored tiles lying in this corner of the exhibition hall at the Meridian Gate, however, speak silently of the end of the 500-year process of construction that created the Imperial Palace as we know it today.
它现在这个比较的偏黄，就是色相上应该再暖一点，就差不多了。
Xie Anping is a researcher at the Palace Museum's Department of Architectural Heritage. She's been collecting historical materials on the restoration of the Forbidden City after the founding of the People's Republic of China, after entering the Palace Museum in 2014. As one of the curators of the Everlasting Splendor exhibition, she is in charge of the exhibits regarding the carpentry of the Palace Museum.
这个应该是他在放大这张照片的时候，他没有把那个底片放全。那我们当时复制就直接用这张。
An old photo holds the key to this section of the exhibition. The men in the photo were participants in the restoration of the first corner tower after the founding of the People's Republic of China. The corner tower, a masterpiece of Chinese architecture, combining complexity of structure with exquisiteness of shape, is also a symbol of the Forbidden City, with 9 beams, 18 columns, and 72 ridges. For 600 years, they were damaged and restored time and time again. But it was only in the 1920s that they began to be studied and preserved using modern methods. In 1931, Zhu Qiqian initiated the restoration project of the corner towers. The Society for Research in Chinese Architecture he founded surveyed and mapped the corner towers and other buildings in the Forbidden City, leaving us these invaluable drawings and samples. This was the first comprehensive modern scientific record of the Forbidden City. Modern architecture experts, represented by those from the Society for Research in Chinese Architecture, and generations of building and restoration craftsmen gradually came together. In 1956, the northwest corner tower was seriously damaged thanks to structural decay caused by years of rainwater leakage. Its restoration was one of the largest, most comprehensive, and most difficult projects involving the Forbidden City since the founding of the People's Republic of China. These men in the photo, including Mr. Shan Shuyuan, Mr. Yu Zhouyun, and others, belong to the older generation of Forbidden City experts, while Ma Jingkao, Wang Koliang, and others came from the first and second generation of Palace Museum carpenters after the founding of the People's Republic of China. This was an example of a successful collaboration between researchers and craftsmen. Most of the people in the photo are no longer alive, and even the names of many of them are not known. To further understand the stories behind this photo, Xie Anping decided to search for the people in the photo who are still alive.
来，
咱们到徐老师，哎呀，
来，
好久不见，好久不见。
来，行，
身体挺好的。
哎，我原来我标准个我的历史档案记载是1米7。
历史档案记载，您坐。
现在那天一量我呀，剩1米6、7了，还不到1米7了。
哦。
这，我这不是我吧？这不是山老？这里有好几个呀，都是那个做保卫工作人员，都是中南海过来的，都跟过毛主席。这里头有人，那都严格的很。后来还说过笑话，那是赶上冬天施工啊，拆下来以后啊，为了保护的话，就临时围起来，盖个大锡棚罩起来了。这外界人呢，天天打故宫过来的人往那北长街上一看，这就外边有个谣传。说故宫麻烦了，故宫把角楼拆了，它修不上了。我们心里明白，我们不理他们。西北角楼修完了以后啊，打下的基础，以后再修几个角楼都不成问题了。
您对我们
就对我们这些年轻的人有没有什么想说的话？
成为这方面小专家、大专家、高级专家，成为故宫博物院的古建筑的保护神。
好，谢谢你。
现在你也成了神话人物。
神话人物。好，我们努力。
For 600 years, few craftsmen who participated in the building of the Forbidden City have left their names behind, let alone images of themselves. In this photo, all the carpenters that were involved in the restoration of the corner tower proudly wrote down their names. This restoration project not only enabled the northwest corner tower to stand intact till this very day, but also cultivated the first and second generation of Palace Museum restoration craftsmen, embodying an entire tradition of engineering know-how and construction guidelines. It is also because of these people that the skills and wisdom needed to restore ancient palaces have been passed down from generation to generation.
我从事大木工作17年。就是从75年入职到92年，最后调到保监部。这17年里面，故宫黄金时间学技术就是前10年，到85年左右，就是我们第2个角楼修的时候
400多年了嘛。
是。哎，可以，挺好的啊。有一段没见了啊。
长时间没见了。
好，我们自己弄这光那个。
Xiao Rongxiang entered the Palace Museum in 1975 and retired in 2017. He spent 42 years here. As one of the third generation of carpenters of the Palace Museum, he was involved in the restoration of 2 corner towers. As the exhibition approaches, Di Yajing from the Department of Architectural Heritage invited Mr. Xiao Rongxiang to direct the design of the exhibits. He took out the tools that he used in the restoration of the corner tower over 30 years ago.
来看下工的墨斗。
有20多到85年，30多年。85年为这个角楼，师傅说我以前是一个小墨斗这么大，不够用的，说你去做个墨斗多大点的，做的这个。
In the eyes of carpenters, participating in the restoration of the corner tower was an honor of a lifetime. In 1981, Xiao Rongxiang followed the young and skilled masters in the restoration of the southeast corner tower. By the time it came to restore the southwest corner tower in 1985, Xiao Rongxiang was already a master himself.
1981年6月15号，拆穿望瓦3堂，共用10天左右，参与人18人，赵师傅、翁师傅带领其他师傅还有4个，徒弟12人。说着，我非常感谢这个2个师傅，我的师傅赵成茂和我的领导孟克良孟师傅，是他们2个，我哥俩商量好了，把我放在内线。
The first difficulty involving the restoration of the corner tower was the huge variety and quantity of wooden components.
你是比如把一个角楼拆，从上层3层拆到1层，那上千个构件都码在那儿， 你一定要标好一个号，你标了这个号，你还能按这个号归回去。这样他就给了我一个任务，说你把现在咱们大约这个图纸记录拆到哪一层啊？比如大木锅件多少，领子有多少根儿啊？梁有动了多少根儿啊？船的一共有多少？就是头天你先把这个图纸你拿回家，你去熟悉。那个师傅他经常也说了一个，就是小伙子不能认怂，叫抓木如抓虎，说你一旦抓住它，千万不能松手啊，扛你也得扛起来。那会儿就是遇到困难，没有想法退，那只能往前走。
Before the exhibition, Xiao Rongxiang came to the exhibition hall at the Meridian Gate. The traditional carpentry tools have been made on the basis of his suggestions.
材料研究，然后这技艺传承，这是4个块儿。对，因为好多人都觉得你修古建筑，你不就是刨开就修嘛？其实他不知道里面有人的事儿，有东西的事儿，
还是人是主要的。材料不行，你可以选那个，你认识它啊，什么是朝阴，什么是朝阳的，这是什么地儿的松木，放在什么地儿有用，还是人的问题。
哎，所以这种照片特别的珍贵。就是以前就是很少照这种合影，大家设计者跟施工者一起照相。
我当时还跟我的师傅说呢，我说咱们拿油纸包起来啊，隐蔽处藏起来，将来以后若干年以后人再拆，能知道当时他们是谁。我说我可以把名字现以后的名字。
对，是的。
我师傅说别介，那我永远不得翻身了，被压着。
Looking at his predecessors in the photo takes Xiao Rongxiang back to the days when he worked with them more than 30 years ago. Since his retirement, Xiao Rongxiang has been focusing on passing down traditional skills and techniques to the younger generation of craftsmen in the Palace Museum.
就是2比1，比如守门，所以故宫我们当时学徒是要求，就是9/10放在这儿就行，放出这个卡具，只要刘宪达出来就基本以这个角，以礼金品为好。
So it is that the ancient techniques continue to be passed down, generation by generation. The exhibition is about to begin, and all the 453 exhibits are already in place.
主要是我担心这个
也行，左边要加上也行，就是这样的角，它无酸的，就是对文物不会有这样的影响。
9月10号开幕是吧？行，那找到。
The curator opens this calendar for 1934 and turns to September 10th, the date the exhibition is due to open. Early in the morning, color painting expert Yang Hong comes to her teacher's home.
换换装上院里，好，
这个换换装，
换装。
Wang Zhongjie is a retired Palace Museum expert. He is the most senior guest at the opening ceremony for the exhibition. He doesn't go out much usually. Now he has returned to his beloved Palace Museum.
都老了，都老了。你比我小几岁，小3岁。你属什么的吧？啊？你是3几年出生？你3几年出生？38年。37年。38。哦，那比我小4岁。这4岁啊，在人中年时候不显，到这个岁数4岁就有点差别了。
The roof charms of the proposed Ming capital 600 years ago, the sample of the color painting in the corridor of the Palace of Eternal Spring in the late Qing Dynasty, and the blue tiles that witness the twilight of the empire are all gathered at the Meridian Gate to celebrate the 600th birthday of the Forbidden City.
我们来看一下这张照片，我觉得现在很难见到这样的照片，这就是西北角楼当年5、6年修缮的时候，单士元先生、余卓云先生和这个工匠们一起拍的照片。设计人员跟工匠一起来把这个建筑修好，其实是我们真正的古建筑保护之道。
这个墨斗，
这我都会用，
锯我也，
帽子我也会用，
帽子我也会用。
他那个建筑啊，凤阳的，这是他老家。
这东西有太阳透光，没太阳自己能发光，你感觉吧？
讲明代故宫城的银剑，紫禁城，紫禁代的银剑，这不租地吗？
History is people's history. The exhibits here remind people that the only reason for the everlasting splendor of this place is the wisdom and effort of generations of people working for the Forbidden City. Over the long relay of time, it's thanks to the contribution of each individual that we're able to enjoy these splendid palaces and this astonishing artwork. Devotion and dedication that will see the amazing Forbidden City last for another 600 years.